Hey everybody, it's Tim from Tadabase here, and this is Build It with Tim. On today's episode, we are jumping back into our AI assisted app build. On last week's episode, we started by using our custom built GPT inside of ChatGPT, where we created a Tadabase helper who has access to the full Tadabase Help Center to help us build an application for a lawn care service company. We've already gone through and we've created our data tables per the suggestions of our AI assistant. And in this week's episode, we are going to start working on the pages. To recap what we did last time, we started building out our data tables here inside the Tadabase Data Builder, and we created a bunch of tables that were suggested to us through our AI assistant, our Tadabase helper, custom GPT. So we have things like the employees table, a clients table, a client properties table, jobs table, and a services table. All of these data tables together are going to help us create this application for our lawn care company. And when we left off last week, we fed another prompt into our custom GPT, our Tadabase helper here, asking to help us with the page builder, specifically the layouts, the pages, and the components that we should use per page. So we're going to go through this one by one, page by page, and we'll go over all of these bits and pieces to construct our actual application through the page builder. Starting off with the first suggested page here, the Tadabase helper has suggested we build a main dashboard. And the components that we're going to use are summary cards or card components, calendar component, and this recent activity feed idea here. Now, we don't actually have a data table built to contain an entire feed of all the history throughout the application. It's certainly possible that you could do that, but in our case, we'll probably just include a table component or something of maybe it's the jobs or services, or we can maybe combine different things using column tabs. So we might be able to be a little bit creative here on this last suggestion, but we'll go ahead and dive into this main dashboard first. So the first thing we'll do is we'll head to the page builder inside the Tadabase builder, and we're going to start to build out our pages. Now, the Tadabase helper did suggest that we focus on how things should be laid out, or it mentioned the word layout. Now, in our case, what we're going to do is we're actually going to focus on the page layouts that exist already inside of Tadabase. The page layouts are simply a container for your pages that share consistent elements across each page. So things like a menu, a breadcrumb trail, or a user menu to allow users to log in, sign up, or log out. All of these things will be consistent across all of the pages within the layout. Additionally, the layout allows us to apply a security setting to the layout, which will be applied to all the pages within. So in terms of layouts, we're going to kind of talk about two different things. Number one being page layouts, and number two, the actual layout of each page in regards to user interface and user experience. So let's start by adding a new page, and we'll just call this dashboard. We will select the layout that we want to add it to, and we can then select it to add it to the existing layout menu. We don't need to choose any components here because we just want a blank page where we can start to add the components that were suggested to us by our AI assistant. The first thing we're going to add are some card components. So the suggestion that we received was to display key metrics like the number of total clients, ongoing jobs, completed jobs, and total employees. To do that, we're going to add a row here, and we can do this quick select of 4 columns in order to give us places to place 4 components. Starting with the first one, we'll add a card component, and we'll choose the client's data table. And for our calculation here, we will simply just count how many clients there are. Under card options, we will say clients and just customize this to our needs here. And we're good to go for that. The next card component that we're going to do is ongoing jobs. So we're going to select the jobs table. And again, we're going to count the number of jobs here, but now we can place conditions here to say when the job status is not, let's just do is scheduled. We have 3 options to choose from that we created for this job status field: scheduled, completed, and canceled. So for ongoing, we're going to want to do scheduled. Again, to card options, we can give it our title, ongoing jobs, 35 pixels for the header, and we'll do 30 for the content to match the first card that we did. And then we'll just keep going and we'll do the same thing for our other cards. The last two are going to be completed jobs. In this case, again, we will count one more time, this time where the job status is completed, and then we will just change the header to be descriptive. And the last one is going to be the number of employees. We'll do total employees. And I'd like to update the clients one also to say total clients. And I realized I made a font size mistake here inside this card header. Okay, so that is our first row of components that is going to be used for our dashboard. All right, so we can now preview this page to see what we have so far. All right, so this is the beginning of our actual live application, which means the application that our users are going to interact with. So whether that's our office staff or maybe eventually the clients are going to have a portal that they can log into as well. This is a preview of what that's going to look like. This is the actual live application running as a web app inside your browser. So you can see we are starting to build out our dashboard. We have our four cards, which in this case are all counting 0 because we don't actually have any data inside of our app. But we'll get to that later after we set up our pages. We'll populate the whole app with data so we can see what it looks like in a more practical sense. Next, we are going to add a calendar component. And we also have that recent activity feed, that suggestion that was made to us. But again, we're going to have to be a little bit creative about that because we don't necessarily have all of that activity data readily available. So we are going to, let's start with, we'll just do one column for now, and we'll do a calendar component. Now, because we have a date field associated with our jobs table, we are going to see jobs as an available data table here to select. We can give this component a name, and you can see we are pre-selected with the date field that exists inside of our jobs table for each job record. Then we can choose the label field for how we want to display the actual records on the calendar component. So we can choose something like client name or client property or the job ID. I'll probably do the client property, I think, or maybe the client name. That might be easier. It's less text. So we'll do client name, and then we can enable things like drag and drop, the detail pop up, and a form to add new records. I don't think so. And actually, I'm realizing now that because this is a dashboard page, maybe we'll simply just uh, enable the detail view, and that's it for now. Okay, so we can simply update and save that. And again, we can go preview our page to see what that's going to look like. Now, there's not going to be any data here, of course, but this is the start of what it's going to look like. So I have an idea of what we can do for that activity feed. And instead of doing this sort of activity feed, we're going to do like a list of upcoming jobs by client. So I'm going to I've added a new column here, but then I just simply need to resize this and resize the calendar in order to fit them side by side, because we're going to have the calendar on the left and a table component on the right. So we're going to choose add component and choose the table component, and we're going to choose jobs. We can then customize this to change the title. We'll say upcoming jobs. And now we can add things like the job ID, the client name, and the property, and the scheduled date and time. Now, I realize this is somewhat redundant for the calendar component, but sometimes it's nice to see things. We can limit the table component to only show a couple of records where you have the calendar, which is more of a larger overview. So we can display things a little bit differently, but kind of using the same data. Next, we're going to go to data source and filters and add a new filter group because we only want to show jobs where the scheduled date and time is during the current week. And when the scheduled date and time is, let's say, today or after. So we have match all selected because we want both of these criteria to be true. And then we can simply just update and save. And that is our completed dashboard page. Let's take a look at the next page that we want to build for our application. And from what I'm seeing here after reading through this, it looks like we are now kind of working in more of individual data set kind of pages. So we're going to have a page that just manages and displays our clients. We can then do a page that just manages and displays our employees, our properties, and our jobs. So we're building out and services, right? So we are now building out pages that are less of a conglomerate of multiple data tables, and they focus on a specific data table and then allow us to view details of any given record. So we're going to go ahead and build those pages now, starting with the client page. We have client details, which is going to be a detail component on a client detail page, and we'll show you how to set that up here in a second. And then we have the list or table component, right, to simply display our clients. And on our detail page, we can include the job history and any notes or comments that have been added for that particular client. So in the same way we added our dashboard page, we will add another page called clients, add it to our menu. And in this case, I'm actually going to choose a component to start with, and that will be a table component for clients. And the reason I'm doing this is because I know I'm going to want some features, some other components to help me manage and add clients. So we have a nice prompt here that asks us, do you want to include a form to add new clients? I will say yes. And do you want to include a link to view more details about a client? This will create our detail page. So we'll choose yes and hit save. And believe it or not, this page is basically done. We now have the ability to view all of our clients, add a new client. And when we have clients here, we can view out the detail page in order to add more information about that particular client. If we go back to our page builder and navigate to that client details page, we can see the detail component is already here, and we can now add more information about that client. Job history was one of the suggestions that we received. But before I do that, I'll add a list of client properties. And then I'll add another component, another table component to display the jobs that this client has had. And just like that, we now have our detail page, which allows us to look at a single client record and display all connected or related data depending on our needs. Right now, we have two connected tables that are being displayed, the client properties and the jobs for that client. We're going to repeat this process for things like the employees that we have for our organization, where we're going to now select employees. We're going to do the same thing by toggling on both the form component and the detail page to save this. And now, again, we have the ability to view and manage our employees, add employees, and view employee details. On employee details, I think I might want to display a table component for the jobs that they've been assigned to. Next, we will do our property management page and our job management page and the services page. So I will get those built here quickly. We're going to basically do the same thing. So you don't necessarily have to watch me create 3 more pages with identical components. However, once I'm done, we're going to go over a couple important things like linking these detail pages together and adding edit forms to each component and page so that we can actually modify the data that lives inside of our application. Okay, so I've gone through and I've now added the rest of these pages, the properties, the jobs, and the services. And I've made some changes to the detail pages for each one, but specifically the one I want to focus on is the job details. Now, this is going to be a really primary and important page for us to deal with inside of our application. So, in regard to a lawn care servicing company, the job itself is probably going to be the object or the data table inside of your application that's going to get the most action, right? So we want to, there's a lot of data that we want to view about a job, like the client property, the services, the employees that are assigned, any notes, any of those things are going to be visible, or we want them to be visible inside the job detail page. We also want this to be kind of a centralized location that we can constantly get back to no matter where we are inside of our application. So if we're looking at clients and when we're looking at client details and we want to see more information about one of those clients' jobs, then we want to be able to link from this data table in client details over to job details so that we can continue to see more information about that. Now, the way that we're going to do that is through the use of connected page links. When we are inside of a detail page in any connected or related component, we can navigate to the links menu inside of that component and choose connected page. So for clients, right, we have options to go to these different types of connected pages. In this case, we're looking at client properties. We could then go to the client property detail page. Inside the jobs component here, which is the connected jobs for the particular client we're viewing, we can do a connected page that will take us to that job details page. So we can always navigate kind of laterally throughout the application, as opposed to just kind of going vertically from clients to employees to properties to jobs to services and so on. So for all of these components on our detail pages where we are displaying connected information, we are simply going to add these connected page links so that we can always get to another detail page to view more information about that particular thing. And the last one we'll do is for services before we dive a little bit deeper into the job detail page. Okay, but before we do that, the other thing that I want to show you here is the ability to add edit links. Okay, so we are in this page, this clients page, where we now have a form to add new clients and a button to view client details. We also might want the ability to edit that particular client. And there's two ways that we can do that. Number one, we can go on the parent level page here of clients, click on the table component, and again, back under the links menu, we can choose edit. And this will create an additional page with a form component that is purpose built to edit this particular client. So I'll do that one here. It'll make an edit form and we can simply update and save. And now we have a whole form dedicated to editing that client. The other way we could do this is on the client detail page. We could add another column with another component and choose a form component to edit this page's client. This will add a form component directly into the page, the detail page, so that you can manage the client right here inside the detail page. All right, but for now, I'm just going to leave it as the edit link that lives inside the parent level component for clients. And I'll do that for the rest of my parent level pages here so I can edit the records from each data table. Okay, so now we have the ability to view all of the records from each one of our data tables. So we have built pages for each one of these data tables inside of our data builder that allow us to view all of the records within. We also have the ability to add records using the form component. We have the ability to edit those records using the form component. And we have this child page called a detail page, which is created in order for us to view information specifically about one record from a data table and view all of the connected records from other data tables. And inside those components, we have the ability to navigate laterally between detail pages using the connected page link. All right, and all of this will make a little bit more sense once we have data inside the application and we take a tour of what this looks like now that we're almost finished. And the last thing, like I said, I want to focus on here is the job detail page. Because this is going to be such an important page that gets visited over and over and over again throughout the use of this application, I want to add a few things here to make this a little bit nicer. If we look at what was suggested here, we have things like the job calendar, the job list or table, and job details, but it doesn't really specify what should be on that job detail page. So using the components that we have available to us, we can start to kind of visualize what this might look like in a more uh, user-friendly way. So for each job, right, we have a client property. That client property has an address. So maybe I want to display a map component that actually displays the client property. So we'll choose the connected client properties that are for this particular job. And then we can just make sure that our property address is being used for this map and we're good to go. So now we can actually see a map of this particular job based on the client property's address. I might also want to include the ability to edit the job directly on this particular detail page. So yes, I do have a link here inside this parent level table here, table component that displays all of our jobs. But on the job details, maybe I also want to include an edit form to edit the actual job. So maybe I'll include that below here, the job detail. So we'll choose edit this page's job. And I can then select what fields I actually want to be able to edit. So at this point, the client name is probably not going to change. The client property might change. Schedule date and time might change. Uh, and the job status and the service type. I think that's probably fine for now because we can manage the assigned employees in another area if we need to. And the notes and comments, we can do that below in a form. So, um, no, you know what? I will add assigned employees there. That's fine. I'll do that here. So we can also change this to say edit job. So now we have a form built in here to just allow us to just stay right on this page. We don't have to leave it, and we can edit this while we are here looking at it. Now, the last thing that I mentioned here is that notes and comments. I'm going to do this a little bit differently here. I'm going to um, I'm going to rearrange this detail component a little bit. You know what? I probably could have left the two columns there, but it's fine. We'll just put that back. Client name and property, and then we'll do the schedule, date and time, the status, and the service type. We'll just display those items here. And then the notes and comments I'm going to do below. So we've updated that detail component. I'm going to add another detail component here at the bottom for the jobs, but this time I'm only going to display the notes and the comments. And we'll give this a title, job notes comments. And what I should have done is added a column with two, or added a row with two columns, but that's okay. I can just change it here. And now we're going to add another edit form so that we can only include the notes and comments here. So we can edit the notes and comments that will show up here on the right. So I don't know, you don't have to do this. It's essentially going to show, maybe some duplicate information, but we're just trying to show you what's possible or what's available to you using the different components and the features within a detail page and the page builder. All right, so let's head over to our actual application now so we can kind of see what this is going to look like. So we have our dashboard. We then have our clients table, our employees table or page, and then our properties, jobs, and services. So now we can actually start to get data in here. So let's populate this and then we'll come back and we'll take a look at the full application. Okay, and we are back here. So now we have some data inside of our application. You can see our card components here inside of our dashboard page are now populated with some numbers. We also have some information here on our calendar that allows us to get some quick access information to a scheduled job, as well as one of those connected page links that will take us from this job record into job details. Okay, now here is our job detail page that has our detail component of the job, the map component that lets us know where this job is taking place, the ability to edit the job, the list of services that are being provided for this job, and the list of employees assigned to this job, as well as the ability to assign notes that can be visible here inside the detail component on the right. We also have our ability to view all of our clients, employees, client properties, all of the jobs, and all of our services. Inside of each one of these pages with these table components, we have our add new record forms to add things like new services, jobs, properties, employees, or clients. And then we have the ability to edit those particular records as well. And so overall, I think our AI assistant did a pretty good job of describing how our pages should be structured. In reality, I think this is a really common use case for how someone would build out an application to manage this type of organization or business. I think we've covered all of the bases that we really need to cover in order to get a good view of all of the data that we have for our business, be able to edit all of the data for our business, and really gain a lot of oversight into the jobs and the properties and all of the things and how they kind of work together. See, just by navigating to any particular page or detail page, let's find a client property that actually has some jobs associated with it. We can now see those connected jobs and we can just navigate directly to the job details in order to make any changes that we need. So this is a fantastic start for an application where you can continue to add on things like payroll or HR services or client portals so that clients can actually log in and view all of the jobs that have been scheduled or assigned for them. So now not only are your employees in tune with what's going on, but your clients are in tune with how you're operating your business and what they can expect as far as the services that they receive. All right. So thanks so much for watching this week's episode of Build It with Tim. We'll see you next time. Take care.